Okay, our next lesson in the fractions unit is multiplying fractions, which is 5-5 out of our textbook. And our learning target for today is I can multiply fractions and mixed numbers. So here is some vocabulary that we want to make sure that we have written down in our notebook. So I would pause this and copy it down. Our numerator, that we know is the top number in a fraction, and that represents the part. And the denominator is the bottom number, which represents the whole. So in a fraction, it is saying part over whole, or part out of whole, which is an important thing to remember. An improper fraction is when the top number is bigger than the bottom number. And this is telling us that our number represents more than one whole. So examples of this: 3/2, 5/4, 26. Okay, those are more than one whole. And a mixed number is a fraction with a whole number and a fraction. This is the simplified form of an improper fraction. So for example, we could take the 3/2, and that would be written as 1 and 1/2 as a mixed number. 5/4 would be 1 and 1/4. 20/60 would be 3 and 2/6. Okay? So make sure you have all of that written down. Also, make sure that we have this written down: box, bolded, highlighted, starred. Okay? So these are the steps to multiply fractions and mixed numbers. So step 1, write any mixed number as an improper fraction. Step 2, put a 1 under any whole number. So if we have a whole number of 5, we put that over 1. Or 7 over 1. Okay? Then you multiply the numerators. Step 4, multiply the denominators. And then 5, you write your answer in simplest form. Here is again multiplying fractions. To multiply fractions, multiply the numerators and the denominators. Okay, so if we have 1/2 times 2/3, we take the 1 times 2, and then we take the 2 times 3, and we get an answer of 2/6. Okay, so again here is showing 1/2 times 1/3. We would take the 1 times 1 and the 2 times 3, and we would get an answer of 1/6. Okay, now that's already in simplest form, so we are done. Here's a visual of that. If we are taking 1/2 of something, that's this blue section, that's 1/2, and then we're multiplying it by 1/3, that gives us, we look at the overlap, which is this 1/6 area. Okay? Now, we have 2 times 3/4. Again, if we have a whole number, we put that over 1, so 2 over 1 times 3/4. Okay. Multiply the numerators together. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 4 is 4. Now we need to take this improper fraction and write it as a mixed number. So we say, how many times does 4 go into 6? Well, it goes in there 1 time. We have 2 left over out of 4. And again, we can simplify that down again to be 1 and 1/2. And there's another visual here to show you. If we have 3/4 of something and another 3/4, 2 of those gives us 6/4 or 1 1/2. Here are some for you to pause and try on your own, and then come back and check your answers after. 3/5 times 1/2, 3 times 1, 5 times 2, 3 over 10, or 3/10 is our answer. Okay? 1/3 times 3/4, take the numerators times each other, take the denominators times each other. 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 4 is 12. Now this we can simplify, we can divide them both by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, 12 divided by 3 is 4, so we get a final answer of 1/4. And the last one, 2/3 times 4. Okay, 2/3 times 4, since the whole number we put it over 1. 2 times 4, 3 times 1. We get 8/3. How many times does 3 go into 8? Well, 3, 6, 9 gives us too many, so it goes in there 2 times. If it goes in there, that's 6, and there's 2 left over out of 3. So there's our answer. Now there's something that we can do to make our multiplication even easier. I call them shortcuts. And if we have 2/7 times 3/8, okay, what we can do is we can look for the greatest common factor between numbers, back to that GCF. So what we do is we look at these numbers that are diagonal from each other. So we look at the 7 and the 3 and the 2 and the 8, and we say, are there any numbers that go into them? So let's start with 7 and 3. There's no number, the greatest common factor of those is 1, so those are already simplified. Now look at the 2 and the 8. I know that 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 8 4 times, so we can simplify those first. Now we do our multiplication. 1 times 3 is 3. 7 times 4 is 28. Okay? So our answer is 3/28. Now if we didn't simplify that from the start, 2 times 3, I'm looking at this original, 2 times 3 is 6, 7 times 8 is 56, and if we divide both of those by 2, so now we're simplifying them, 3/28. Okay, so it just kind of skips a step, it skips that simplifying at the end by finding the greatest common factors. Okay, so here are some for you to try and come back and check after. Look for those shortcuts, numbers that can be simplified. 1/3 times 3/7. Well, I look at these 3, they can both be divided by 3. So now I have 1 times 1, 1 times 7 equals 1/7. And there's my answer. So now I skip that step of simplifying at the end. 4/9 times 1/8. We can look at the 4 and the 8. 4 goes into both of those. Goes into 4 one time, and it goes into 8 2 times. Now we multiply our numerators together and our denominators together. Okay. 1 times 1 is 1, 9 times 2 is 18, so there is our final answer. 5/6 times 2/8, I'm going to zoom in here. Okay, look for your shortcuts. We look at these diagonal numbers and see what can be simplified. Let's start with the 5 and the 5. Well, the greatest common factor between these two is 5. So we can say, how many times does 5 go into 5? Well, it goes in there 1 time. Same thing here. Now, between the 3 and the 6, the greatest common factor is 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now we do our multiplication. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. So we have an answer of 1/2. Alright, now we are looking at multiplying mixed numbers. In order to do this, we have to get them into an improper fraction. So our 1/2 stays the same. Now, to turn a mixed number into an improper fraction, we take our denominator times our whole number, and then we add the numerator. So 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22/5. And we multiply them. Again, look for your shortcuts. 2 goes into 2 one time, and it goes into 22 11 times. Okay. Now 1 times 11, 1 times 5. So our answer is 11/5. But we need to turn this back into a mixed number. So we say, how many times does 5 go into 11? Well, 5, 10. So it goes in there 2 whole times. And then from 10 to 11, there's 1 left over out of 5. So our final answer is 2 1/5. So the only extra step is turning it into an improper fraction and then divide or multiply like normal. Okay, oops, I'll zoom out here. Here's some for you to try on your own, so go ahead, pause, and then come back and check your answers. The first one here, 1/4 times 8 4/9. The 1/4 stays the same. We need to turn 8 4/9 into an improper fraction, so we take 9 times 8, which is 72, plus 4 is 76/5. over 9. Okay, now again look for those shortcuts, and I look at the 4 and the 76, and I know that they both can be divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 76 divided by 4 is 19. So now we take 1 times 19, 1 times 9. So numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. We have 19 over 9. We have to simplify this. How many times does 9 go into 19? Goes in there 2 times, with 1 out of 9 remaining. So there's our answer. Next one, 5 1/3 times 3. Okay, turn a mixed number into a fraction. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16 over 3. 3, we can turn that into a fraction by writing it over 1 since it's a whole number. Look for your shortcuts. 3 goes into both of those one time. Numerators times each other. Denominators times each other. So we get 16 over 1, which is just 16. One more here. 1 7/8 times 2 2/5. Turn both of these into an improper fraction. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 7 is 15 over 8, times 12 over 5. I just took 5 times 2 plus 2. Okay. Look for those shortcuts. 15 and 5 can both be divided by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Both of these can be divided by 4. Okay, just looking at how many times does 4 go into each of them. Now take your numerators, 3 times 3, times your denominators. We have 9 over 2. Turn this improper fraction back into a mixed number. 2 times 9, 2 goes into 9 4 times, which gives me 8, so then there's 1 left over out of 2. Alright, so if you need a little bit more review, you can always go back and re-watch the video. You can look in your book at the examples. You can also watch the tutor videos in your online textbook, but go ahead and take your NICU quiz.